Many of my clients come to me because they want to parent differently than how they were raised. They say things like, well, my mom was really judgmental and I want my kids to feel accepted for who they are. Or my mom was a yeller and I want my kids not to be afraid and to grow up like in a calmer household, more secure. They've taken all of those feelings they have about the ways they were raised and used them as motivation to parent differently. And like all things, that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you use it. And so that's what I want to talk about today. One of the moms, like I say this with so much sympathy, right? Because we're all just doing our best, just like our moms did their best. And if you had a mom and you have like some feelings that maybe her best wasn't that great, like it's understandable that you want to parent differently. So one of the moms that I talked to recently said something like, I just want to be a better mom to my kids than what I had growing up. So what did you hear in that statement? Let me repeat it in case it kind of flew by. I just want to be a better mom to my kids than what I had growing up. So what I hear in there is a hierarchy of moms. This idea that some moms are good moms and other moms are bad moms. And we definitely don't want to be one of those bad moms. And even if you don't believe that it's that black or white, you're still buying into the idea that some moms are better moms than other moms, right? And like we want to be higher on that hierarchy of good momness. But who decides that? And based on what? Like you don't leave the hospital with a criteria of good momness, of like things you need to do, and then you can feel, that you're good enough as a mom. Like what would that even be? The number of bedtime stories you read, the number of vegetables you got them to eat, whether those vegetables were organic or regular, the number of cupcakes you baked, your volunteer hours in the school, like whether or not you could afford to buy them an American Girl doll or send them to that elite soccer camp that all their friends went to, or to have the same number. My kids were raised in the early aughts, so the same number of UGG boots that all the other kids had. Like nowadays, parenting not only has this expectation of how many hours you volunteer and how clean your house is. And like if you're the cool house where your friends want to hang out, but there's all these financial expectations on parents too. Like having a kid and even getting the bare minimum done is expensive. So maybe now you're thinking, well, I didn't mean like that. I didn't mean all those criteria. I just mean, and they'll pick something really small and really specific, which I actually love because you can coach on the specifics. When you can pin things down, then you can use the specific to look at the greater idea. But when there are these big nebulous concepts like good mom or better mom, it's very hard to know when you're a good enough mom. I'm laughing because I think like for my parents' generation, it was like, is your kid alive at the end of the day? Check, good mom. A little bit I long to go back to those days. So maybe you're thinking like, well, I didn't mean like that. I just mean like my mom was always too busy to come to my games and all the other parents were there. And I always felt so bad, like it wasn't important. And so I never want to miss my kids' games. And like wanting to go to your kids' games is great, but that's not what that mom expressed. She was saying she wants to go to the games so that her kids won't feel like she felt. Like she's trying to, And you see how like complicated and twisted she's trying to like have her kids have a specific emotional experience by her going to the games. But of course, like you can't control what emotional experience your kids like. Maybe they'll carry you there, or maybe they won't even notice you're there. Maybe you can go to half the games, or maybe like it's different if you want to go to the games or if you're going to the games so that they will have a specific feeling about you, or if it's about your judgment about yourself if you don't go to the games. Can you see how that's not even really about your kids? And so there's that, like about making yourself feel like a good mom for going to the games. Or there's also this fear about making your kids feel bad or having them be mad at you. And that fear of making your kids feel bad, or for some parents it doesn't show up as fear, it more shows up as worry about screwing them up, like my parents screwed me up, is just a bad place to make any parenting decisions from. Okay, it's like that fear, that worry is like a bad seed. It's not good motivation to be a good mom. It's like a bad seed that can only grow bad fruit. I'm a farmer's daughter, and I'm not exactly sure how bad seeds work. Like, in my mind, they would just not sprout at all. But maybe they do actually grow bad fruit. I don't know. If you know the answer to that, definitely write me. So let me use a different example than bad seed. Let me say, if you are parenting from the not like my mom did place, you're always going to have this low-level fear in the background. And you'll try and do right by your kids because you love them. You do, but that fear will also always be there. And that fear is like a drop of purple ink in a glass of water. If you can picture that, if you put a dropper in, how that purple ink just kind of permeates and spreads out and colors everything. Like there's so much clear water in there, but even like a little bit of that purple ink will, like it just permeates the whole glass. Or you could think of it like a smell. Fear has like has almost like a smell to it that you can't exactly put your finger on, but the people around you can smell that insecurity. And it leaves you open to judgment, not just your kids judging you, but other people judging you as well. We don't want that. And all of that's based on the idea that your mom screwed you up somehow, and now you're screwed up. And that's just not true. You're not screwed up. Even if some stuff went sideways in your childhood, like you aren't screwed up or broken. And you aren't going to screw up or break your kids either. You just aren't. Even if they need therapy in their adulthood, even if they grow up with, some ideas about money that they later want to change. That's a really common one I hear. It's fine. Your mom was a human. You're a human. We're just all doing our best. And our best is good enough. Okay, you are a human mom, and that's such a bummer because some things you're going to do great at and other things you're just going to be mediocre at because you're human. And when I say great and mediocre, like that changes kid by kid because each child needs something different from you. And some things are going to be so easy for you to give to them because you have it in spades. But other things that they might need from you, you don't have. Not because you're not a good mom, but because you're a human mom. Okay? Your kids are not the arbiter of your good momness. They're not the referee. They're not the judge. They don't get to decide if you are a good mom. Okay? That would just be too painful. You cannot have your self-esteem hanging on your kids' opinion of you, especially your teenagers and young adults' opinion of you. Okay? Like don't let that happen. That's not good for you and it's not good for them. It's way too much pressure on them for you to need them to tell you that you're doing a good job. Okay? When they tell you you're doing a good job, definitely enjoy those days, enjoy those moments, screenshot those texts. You're going to need them later. But don't hang your good momness on their opinion, because 5 minutes later, they're going to think you're doing a terrible job and that you're the least cool, least reasonable person on the planet. Okay? Your kids need you to be the adult. They need you to believe in your good momness, because they need to believe that they were raised by a good mom. That's what helps them. And you can learn and grow and change right alongside your kids. There's definitely things that I look back and I'm like, oh, okay, I did it that way then, and now I'm going to do things differently. That was not my finest move, not my finest hour. But I do believe deeply that whatever they were getting from me was the best I had to offer at that time. And I believe just as deeply that my best is good enough. Okay? I am sure that my kids will parent differently than I parented them. And their kids will parent differently than they parent, and so on and so on. And that's okay. And thinking about what you loved from your childhood and wanting to replicate that for your kids is great. Maybe you loved hanging out with your cousins. I did. And so I try to make sure that my kids knew their cousins, even though we lived really far away. And it didn't really work out, but I stand by my effort because that was important to me growing up. And so it was important to them, to at least have the opportunity. And thinking about what you hated in your childhood and wanting to do something different with your kids is also great. Just as an example, financially, my parents couldn't swing a lot of family vacations. And the time I was off school was my dad's busy season. He was a farmer. That is their very busiest time of year. And so family vacation, we didn't do a lot of family vacations. And so I really wanted to share my love of travel with my kids. And maybe that worked out a little too well because my oldest now lives in Europe. So you can't even control, you can only control your efforts. And I just want you to be careful about staying connected to the feeling state of why you're choosing to parent differently. If you want to share something that you love, go right ahead. If you want to skip something you hated, also go right ahead. But don't attach yourself to the idea that they will love or hate what you did. Or that things, that despite all your good efforts, you might have a child that feels diametrically opposed to you do about the topic of vegetables or exercise or whatever. And just be super wary of doing anything from a place of fear. Okay, you just want to have a really sensitive nose to that smell of fear of screwing them up, or that any whiff of a fear place of doing to your kids. Don't let yourself parent from that place, because that is not where your good decisions will come from. That is a bad neighborhood, and I want you to stay out of it. Why? Because you are a good mom, and you don't need to worry about screwing your kids up. Okay, you're doing a good job. Just keep connecting to your good momness over and over and over. And in that way, you will help your kids connect to their own innate goodness over and over and over. Okay, if you aren't sure where you are with any of this, reach out to me, ask me any questions you have at Allie@allieirwin.com. And, we'll talk about what's going on and I will help you get it sorted out. Alrighty, have a great week, everyone. Talk to you next week.